because I have no direct proof of it. But it's my belief from examining the protocol and the steps and knowing the situation, that my grandmother wanted to control what was left of the family and pushed him over the banister, killed him. And the reason for that was my uncle, Judge O'Connell, was living there with Dr. O'Connell. He was a witness to the death. He was a judge of the criminal court. My uncle was state's attorney, Robert E. Crow, and my mother's brother, Dr. O'Connell, signed the death certificate saying he fell off the banister. So
Neatly arranged.
It was all, you couldn't have undone it.
A little convenient.
You couldn't have undone it.
Yeah.
Mom certainly always talked about her as a very wicked and mean woman.
She was. She was.
Yeah.
Well, in fairness, I don't remember her referring to her as wicked. I do remember her referring to her as...
Oh, no, she there was no love. My sister never walked down into that apartment on the first floor. She wouldn't go down there. I would. I'd take them on. I'd fight with them.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't. My sister was like my father, very, very passive and very religious.
Yeah.
I was wild and not religious. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, but so then you continued living there until about 65 when you sold out.
yes.
You said there was a suit. Was that among some of the family members to get out of it, or?
It was a partition suit that Jack Connery filed against my mother and Dr. O'Connell. And by reason of the partition suit, the court would have sold the property and we got nothing for it. So we agreed to sell it, and we sold it basically to Jack Connery, who went out and got a big mortgage and took his wife's interest and mortgaged the rest.
Is this
What?
the Kara Connery family?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew Kara Connery from Forest.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
There
There was somebody, I think one of the daughters might have been in Mom's Good Friends and in The Wedding, maybe? Connery sounds familiar.
She's good friends with Joan Connery.
Yeah,
The Connery family and the Guyman family were very close at times, and then other times they were at war.
Yeah.
And they were, but one thing was very clear was we were always at sort of war with my grandmother and Dr. O'Connell because we believed he was stealing money, but we couldn't. He was the trustee, and we couldn't figure it out. I mean, until he died, and then I figured it all out.
yeah.
You know, the other thing that Mom mentioned was that her wedding dress was actually Joan Connery's wedding dress.
That could be.
Yeah, and the veil was her own, but the dress
I
was...
believe that to be true.
Yeah.
Where?
So, Joan Connery.
Where?
Joan Connery. Now, the other thing then would be a little bit about... I mean, I remember grandmother as being very fretful and anxious and worried about things, but
My mother was a
like?
nervous wreck.
She was a nervous wreck. Yeah.
Yeah. He was always uptight because my father, I mean, let's face it, when I went to college, we were broke. I mean, my father had a very minimal salary at the city of Chicago as an attorney. He wasn't making anything.
Really?
And we were uptight. And that caused me to work all through high school. I'd save $5,000 by the time I got out of high school. Because I could have paid my college and I was a moneymaker all my life.
Yeah.
And maybe not so good anymore at it, but I got enough to live on. So,
You think he'd be pretty well paid working for the city of Chicago, but it was more of a political position?
yes, totally. He was totally controlled by the Democratic wards. And if the ward guy didn't like you, you were gone.
Yeah.
So he was always in a precarious situation.
But I also figured that grandmother seemed to have been much more opinionated.
Oh, yes. My mother was very opinionated.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. And worrisome, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And she was fighting with her brother all the time because she could see.
Yeah.
We had a maid. They had a maid named Mary. And she'd come up every night. And I'd come home for dinner and my dad would be there. she'd come up and say, oh, your grandmother just, or your Mrs. O'Connell just gave the doctor another $500 of the rent money and stuff. And you know, it would just enrage me. So finally one night, I said to Mary, I said, listen, you're ruining our dinners. I don't want you here anymore. And she, of course, turned on me and never came back. Yeah.
Well, you know, the thing is that one of the things I struggle to understand with my